Welcome to the Gita in Action podcast. My name's Radha. I'm here with a family of seekers, and we're reading through the Gita, verse by verse, the Bhagavad Gita. It was spoken 5,000 years ago on a battlefield, and it's just ancient wisdom, ancient Vedic wisdom that we are finding extremely relevant to our lives today. And it's been quite a journey. We've been on this journey together for what, a year, about a year and a half now, right? About a year and a half. And it's honestly, this is like such a nurturing service for me. I come back to this service every week and I'm like, oh, I'm so glad that I have this service because I found it so grounding just to study the Gita. It really has a way of like cleaning up the heart, cleaning up the mind. And I'm really grateful for you all that we're here together and we get to do this together. And today we are in chapter 10. We're in chapter 10, and we're starting with verse 9. So, chapter 10, verse 9 is what we're going to talk about today. And we're in a really important section of the Gita. This particular section of the Gita, there's these four verses that are called like the nutshell verses of the Gita. So, this is like the core message of the Gita that's summarized in these four verses that we're going over today. Last class we talked about the first one, which is 10:8. Today we're gonna get into 10:9. But if you hear any verses of the Gita, these are some pretty prominent ones to study because they give the nectar. So that's what we're going to talk about today, and we'll start with 10:9. But before we do that, Stella, could you say our prayers for us?
Sure. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jana Jana Salakaya Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Panchakopa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, let's get right into it. Verse 9, when you're ready, Stella.
Makchita Madgata Prana, Bodhyayanta Parasparam, Katayantascha Mam Nityam, Tusyanti Cha Ramanti Cha. The thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me. Their lives are fully devoted to my service, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss from always enlightening one another and conversing about me.
Thank you. Okay, so again, this is the second of the four verses, this progression that really brings everything together. And just to back up, in the last verse, Krishna said that when someone truly understands that Krishna is the source of everything, then something shifts. It's not just intellectual, it starts to really change you. You naturally feel drawn to him. So this is the verse right before this one. And now this verse is showing what that looks like in the heart. So it's just going even deeper, like when someone really realizes that Krishna is the source of everything. Naturally, you want to surrender to him. You're just drawn towards him. And now verse 9 is showing, that this devotion, it's not forced. It just becomes the natural direction of your emotions. This is where verse 9 is taking us. And what does this actually feel like? When we love Krishna, Krishna becomes our inner home. We can all think about our homes. I had a program at my home yesterday, and it felt so just like cozy. It felt so cozy. And when I'm away from my home, I kind of start to miss my home. We all experience that. You travel, you're busy, and then there's just something about coming home, that feeling of like relief and safety, familiarity. It's just like So in the same way, a devotee may think about many things during the day. You may think about your work, you may think about your family, your responsibilities, but internally, Krishna is your home base. That same feeling that we get when we're traveling, Stella and Kalachandra are traveling right now. That same feeling you get when you're traveling and you think about your home. It's like, oh, it's so nice to be home. You get home and you're like, this is how we should feel. This is how a devotee feels when they think about Krishna. Someone who has this level of realization. It's like, and so when nothing else is pulling their mind, it's like always where their mind goes. And the truth is, everyone has an inner home. We can all think about our inner homes, and you know what your inner home is because in those moments when you're not thinking about anything, it's where your mind goes. Like maybe it's social media, or maybe it's money, or some relationship, success, entertainment, sports, whatever it is, whatever we're most attached to. That's our inner home. So bhakti is the gradual shift of that inner home. So spiritual advancement isn't about pretending that we don't like other things. It's about slowly, gently, and organically relocating the heart and to the place where then Krishna becomes where the mind rests. Krishna becomes the place where the mind rests. It's described in the Bhagavatam like a traveler returning home after a long journey, tired, dusty, overwhelmed, and then just finally feeling that sense of belonging again. This is the same thing. When somebody really tastes that shelter in Krishna, they don't want to leave. They don't want to leave because there the mind becomes peaceful. It's like walking into air conditioning on a hot day. The heat outside hasn't disappeared, but you just instantly feel relief. And this is what happens, when we really realize who Krishna is. When the mind reconnects with him, the agitation, it doesn't control you the same way. And as that realization starts to deepen and deepen, Krishna becomes even more and more our inner home. And this is what we're talking about here. I was just home visiting my family and my sister was asking me like, "Oh, do you guys have any vacations planned?" And we do have some things planned, but they're kind of service trips, like leading retreats and my family's coming with me. So I was telling her this and she's like, "Oh, do you guys have anything just planned just to go on vacation?" And I was like, "No, we don't really." And honestly, I'm not really very motivated to just schedule a vacation just to go on vacation. Because I'd really feel like I'd feel a vacation is like when I feel closest to Krishna. Like that's when when we think about vacation, I want to have the most fun. I want to enjoy. I enjoy the most when I'm close to Krishna, and I feel closest to Krishna when I'm serving. So it's like I don't really, a vacation on its own is just a little bit stale. That was kind of like my feeling in that moment. So it was just this is how you know when Krishna is becoming more and more your inner home because that's just where you feel the most content, the most peaceful when we're in relationship with Krishna, whatever we're doing, serving, chanting, and just in association with devotees. And then we contrast that with modern wisdom. Right? Modern wisdom, cultural wisdom is like this saying like live for the moment. Live for the moment. And it sounds free, sounds wise. And what does it actually mean? It means like maximizing our pleasure right now. Chasing that experience, like squeezing the enjoyment out of this moment. But we know, from our own experience and Sastra, that this material pleasure, it's not available in every moment. It depends on so many things outside of us. Depends on the weather, the weather. Like Stella and College Country are in this beautiful place, California, right now, and there's so many storms. So you go there to enjoy. It's supposed to be nice weather, and then all of a sudden there's so many storms. Right? It's like, oh, our enjoyment is limited now. Or a cooperating body. Where the right stimulation. Like it's dependent. Our excitement is dependent on these external things. And what happens is, these things, the object fades, the taste diminishes, your excitement plateaus, the body tires. Okay, this is material energy. This is what's to be expected. So in this way, like living for pleasure means living for like a few bursts of stimulation. It's basically what we're looking at. It's like you're waiting in line at a amusement park for a ride. It's like you're just most of the time you're at the amusement park for 5 hours. 4 of those hours you're waiting in line, just like hankering for the ride. Then you get on it. It's like great for 10 seconds, and then you're off of it, and then you're just kind of like lamenting to be back on it. This is material existence. This is how we spend most of our time. This is what live for the moment means. Really, it means that you're hankering for a large amount of time, then you're enjoying for like a short amount of time, and then you're lamenting that it's all over for a good amount of time. So it's like, is this really the best thing to live for? When we really break it down, when we really look at it that way, when we really like kind of zoom out and look at our life, look at our experiences in this way, it's like, what is that really? So the Gita's offering us something much more profound. The Gita is offering us this opportunity to live the moment for Krishna, to live the moment for Krishna. And the beautiful thing is that Krishna lives every moment for us. He's not just a temporary object of enjoyment. He's the supreme reservoir of happiness. So when we center the moment on him through remembrance, through chanting, through service, through gratitude, the moment stops being fleeting. It becomes meaningful. And this is the beautiful thing about spiritual life. We don't have to like we're not biting into this lamentation sandwich, with like the enjoyment in the middle and then hankering and lamentation and like the bread pieces around it. Hey, as spiritualists, that's not the sandwich we're eating. As spiritualists, we're like at the like all you can eat buffet of love and joy. It just keeps being replenished, and it's just ever fresh. This is the life of a spiritualist. And because there's always service. There's always opportunity for remembrance. Sometimes the best thing about going on vacation for me sometimes is like you have all this chunk of time that you don't have other obligations. And so you can just spend it chanting and serving. You're at the airport all day. Okay, I'm just going to chant and listen to a lecture. You're like, oh, that's so nice. This is the best thing about traveling. You're no longer bothered by a 3-hour delay at the airport because it's like, okay, I'll just sit here and chant and read. It's quite sweet. And this is the beautiful thing about spiritual life. It's like it's an endless buffet of happiness and connection and peace. And this leads to something even deeper. And this is that happiness, this is what spiritual texts teach us. Happiness is actually a byproduct. Okay? Happiness is actually a byproduct. So all of us want happiness. This is the way we're made. We're designed to crave pleasure. So this is just our makeup. We're gonna crave pleasure. And the world is full of happiness promising activities. So many things to fill your weekend. Movies, festivals, music, food, travel. It just goes on and on. And these things, they feel good initially. But just like we were saying, these things they fade. If you think about like the best vacation you've gone on, you build anticipation for weeks. You go, you relax, you indulge, and then after a couple days, you end up getting a little bit restless. Has this ever happened to anybody else? It's like you look forward to this vacation so much. You go, and after a few days, you're like, what's next? I know my family will sometimes plan a vacation on our vacation. It's like the craziest thing ever. You anticipate this so much, you're so excited. You go on vacation, then when you're on vacation, you plan vacation for another vacation. So it's like no matter how extravagant the experience is, what we often get is really just like relief from boredom. It's like we're bored at home watching TV, then we go somewhere, we're like excited. But this is what it is. It's really just like a relief from boredom. It's not real deep fulfillment. And the reason for this, and great saints have had told us this, that happiness has a paradoxical nature. So if you're making happiness your exclusive goal, you're going to have a harder time catching it. Because the thing about happiness is that it shows up naturally when we dedicate ourselves to something greater than our own pleasure. And this is what this whole material existence is set up to teach us, so that we can figure this out. You go on enough vacations, you figure this out. Anybody who has kids knows that going the funnest thing about going on vacation is seeing your kids have fun. Right? That's like the joy in a parent's heart. Right? Why? Because your consciousness has evolved to the point where you're like, I actually get greater joy out of seeing someone bigger than myself experience joy than me. We've all experienced that, right? To some degree. Or maybe you have a dog. Maybe if you don't have kids, you have a dog, and you see how much joy it brings you just to see your dog, have fun and joyous. So this is what it is. It's when something's bigger than ourselves, when something gives us purpose, when something gives our lives meaning. This is really where the deeper happiness is born, not off of the fleeting experiences. And when you look at the course of even people in our culture do start to figure this out, because like in your 20s, it's like all about drinking and partying. And then after a while, you're like, this is kind of stale. This isn't really filling me up like it used to. And even that it's like, okay, I've kind of grown out of that, we say, right? Because the consciousness is evolving. You're realizing that the level of happiness here, it's just not that great. It's just very fleeting. And then you just end up feeling like crap the rest of the time, right? You got a hangover. You're not showing up for your stuff, right? You crave something more in life, right? So people get together, people have families, and then they're experiencing joy, seeing their family, grow and thrive and have fun, and right. So the Gita is expanding this insight even further. The Gita is saying the highest cause we can dedicate ourselves to is love. And the highest love is love for Krishna. Because Krishna is the all-attractive supreme person. So whatever makes anybody lovable, beauty, strength, compassion, brilliance, it's found fully in him. And he already loves us. He's not waiting to judge us. He's waiting for us to remember him. So when we begin loving him, serving him, remembering him, offering our efforts, the heart's deepest longing to love and to be loved begins to feel fulfilled. Right? And the happiness that arises from that, it's not fragile, it's not circumstantial, it doesn't exhaust itself like the happiness we find here in the material world. It's like, this is really the stuff. This is really the stuff. It's substantial. It's again, it never runs out. It's ever fresh. The happiness, the connection that we feel from serving Krishna. And the subtle thing is here, if we practice devotion just to get happiness for ourselves, like let me chant so I feel peaceful, then the focus becomes self-centered again. And that deeper happiness retreats. So we even have to be very careful about this. We even have to be very careful about spiritual life. And we talked about this to a good extent. To the degree that we're seeking pleasure or happiness for ourselves, we're just going to fall short of it a little bit. We're just not going to get that whole cake. Like we might get some of the like sweetness from the icing on the cake, but we're not going to get the whole thing. It's kind of like a mind trip. Right? But spiritual texts teach us this is really the key to happiness is that we have to stop searching for it. We have to stop searching for it. And we have to make our life's mission, our life's purpose in serving something greater than ourselves. And what's the greatest thing? What's the greatest reservoir of love is Krishna. So if we tap into that and we serve Krishna, it's like it just comes flooding out the love, the connection, the happiness. This is what spiritual texts from all different traditions teach us. Right? When the goal is God's pleasure, happiness floods naturally. It's like we've tapped into this source, this reservoir of just it's just so full. We tap into it, and the water just comes flooding out. It's quietly filling and then it's just overflowing. So this is a secret, not to chase happiness, but just love well, right? And let the happiness follow. What do you guys think? Did you have something to say, Stella? Anybody else want to share anything? Anything that came up for anybody? Are you guys relating to this?
Yeah, just two great takeaways. The lamentation sandwich, really good. And the last words you said, love well and
The happiness will follow.
happiness will follow. Thank you.
Yes. Yes. It's funny, we don't learn these things in school, but we should. Yeah. Because everybody's trying to get a piece, right? Everybody wants happiness. And that's what everybody's doing here is just like searching after happiness. And this is really the key to happiness.
I know I feel happy. In the verse it says, from always enlightening one another and conversing about me. And we do that here. And I'm always happy when we're here.
Yeah. And actually, that's a great segue. We're going to go into that next, actually. This second part of the verse here that says that devotees love talking about Krishna together. And so it's really like the importance of association, getting together with like-minded people and and doing these things together, remembering, chanting, discussing, just like we're doing here. Because when something truly matters to you, you want to share it. You don't get tired of talking about it. And in that exchange, that shared remembrance, there's nourishment. Again, this is like the highest consciousness. Like when you look at another person and what you're excited about is getting together with that person and chanting or discussing these topics or singing kirtan. And so often, especially when we're younger, we expect like you look at a member of the opposite sex and you think, oh, how can I enjoy with that person? And that's like what your teenage years, your 20s, they're like all about. You're like searching for that person that you can enjoy the most with. But the enjoyment that even you're after, it's like this, it's kind of this selfish enjoyment. Like you're not really excited to find someone so that you can serve them. You're excited to find someone so that they can make you feel good. And that's really what we're looking for. And what ends up happening is like there's even a limit on how much we can enjoy with that other person. Anybody who's ever been married for longer than a few years, you start to realize that like, okay, this, the beginning, it's like so sweet. You can't get enough of each other. You're always together. And then after a while, it's like, eh. And then some people, it's like they get to like, I can't even stand that other person, right? No, but when the association you're seeking out is to be centered around something higher than yourself, something higher than your own desire for pleasure, your own need for just self-enjoyment, it's just a much more substantial happiness and a much more like long term. Now, these relationships become like sacred. They become sacred, and because the mind, the body, the speech, everything gets aligned towards something higher. And you have people coming together and doing this together. The connection that they form around Krishna together is like is like so nectarian. It's like so sweet. This is like the pinnacle of relationships. When you think the pinnacle of relationships is like your honeymoon. No, this is this is actually the pinnacle of relate. This is when you really mastered relationships. This is when your relationships are centered around God. And this is why it's so important. When you think about like soldiers in a war, they don't fight alone, right? They're watching each other's backs, they're staying alert for each other. If someone drops guard, someone else steps in. And this spiritual life, it's similar. It's not so dramatic in that outward sense, but internally we're all fighting some kind of battle. This battle against illusion, this battle against these selfish desires, these battles against this me mentality. And it's not always so obvious. It's not always so obvious. It shows up disguised, and it takes over. Our lowest desires come out, our need for validation, for excessive comfort and, distraction. We start to think like, oh, these are our essential needs. And suddenly what's actually harmful, it feels urgent and it feels justified. So this is why we need spiritual friends. They become like our lifelines. It's so important. When we're drifting, they're reminding us of who we want to be. They help us remember our higher values, our deeper aspirations, the versions of ourselves that we're trying to grow into. So this association it's like invaluable in our path. Sometimes we like to think like, oh, I can do it alone. It's like, no, it's actually not even designed like that. Association is so important. We need our comrades. We need our comrades, or we so easily fall back into these traps. And the tricky part is sometimes we even let small differences, like preferences, personalities, minor disagreements, we let these small things create distance. And in this, we forget the bigger picture. The bigger picture is that we're serving the same Lord and we're fighting the same inner battle. And sometimes these differences, they create distance and we end up isolating ourselves. And in that, we lose that protection. And when no one's around to lovingly question us or guide us or guide us, ground us, it becomes easier to just rationalize choices that pull us away from spiritual alignment. And this is how people drift. It's not so dramatic, but it's gradual. And it's not because they're bad, it's just because they're alone and they're out there just kind of drifting. There's a saying like if we don't hang together, we hang separately. And spiritually that's often true. So we have to learn to look past these differences. And it doesn't mean that we just like ignore them. Like if somebody has like a really, offensive personality trait, like we might have to handle that in a functional way, but we don't want to let those things just blow up so big that it's like, oh, I can't go to that because I can't even be around that person. Right? We have to kind of learn to look beyond that in a sense. And maybe there's some people, that you'll be less close to than others. But we really have to learn to kind of like zoom out and see the big picture here. And that is that, okay, maybe this person, I feel like this person kind of takes advantage of people. So I'm not going to get so involved with them, but I'm going to appreciate, how they're serving God in their hearts. I'm going to appreciate that. And I'm not going to have any problem being around them. I may not be doing service directly with them, but I can still be in the same room and I can still appreciate them. Like this is what we really want to aspire for. We can't let these small things get in the because ultimately it's just creating distance between us and God. I know I've struggled sometimes with certain devotees and I've talked to my teachers about it, and the best advice I've ever got is, everybody has a conditioned side and an inspired side. A conditioned side and an inspired side because we're all conditioned. And as devotees, what we have to do, we have to really learn to lean in and appreciate a devotee's inspired side. And that doesn't mean that we ignore the conditioned side. We still have to deal with that in a functional way, you know, but we can't let that conditioned side cloud us from seeing the heart of that devotee and even being inspired by them. There's many devotees that I so much don't agree. I don't always agree with the way they do things, or the way they handle themselves, but I still can take inspiration from them. I still see how they're sincerely trying to serve the Lord, and how they're sincerely fighting their own inner battles. And I can still be very inspired by them. So this is really important. This has become such an important thing for me in my spiritual life, and such a lesson, because when I came into spiritual life, it was like, oh, they're doing that. Okay, they must not be very sincere. And so we have to really learn to kind of discern the conditioned side from the empowered side, and not just like throw the baby out with the bathwater. Okay, so that's my spiel on association. But this association, it's not just about protection. It's about inspiration. It's about inspiration. And we'll even see in these people that have, these terrible habits that we're completely turned off by. We'll see that if we get so obsessed with how turned off we are by them, then we'll miss seeing how inspired we could be by them. We'll miss seeing how inspired we could be by them because we're so fixated on that one little thing that they did that drove us nuts, that then we miss out on seeing this, how much they really rally to serve the Lord. So when we spend time with people who, genuinely want to grow, what happens is we want to grow. People that higher desires awaken. This is what naturally happens in the association of devotees. The desire to serve, to love, to purify, to understand more deeply. And these desires are actually the strongest protection against the lower ones. So when we associate with like-minded people, especially those who share similar definition of spiritual success, we relish Krishna's glories from new and new angles. You hear realizations you hadn't considered. You see people pressing forward despite obstacles. And this strengthens your own resolve. I was just spending the day yesterday with a lady who really inspires me. She's a Prabhupada disciple, and she actually spent like all day helping me bathe my deities. And she's talking about some of the things she's gone through in the movement, because there's been some yuck in the movement. She's talking like she's never kind of fallen away. She's always kind of stayed resolute. And it was really kind of inspiring to hear all the things that she's been through and she's seen and she's experienced, but she's really maintained her commitment in her spiritual life. This is what it takes. It doesn't mean that we're just like overlooking the yuck, or just ignoring it, because we can't ignore it either. But at the same time, we have to learn how to take inspiration, maybe even in spite of it. And we still have to deal with it, but we have to acknowledge, that we're all coming to this with a level of conditioning. We're all going to mess up. We're going to step on each other's toes. We're going to not do that, but we still have to take inspiration, right? We can't just shut down. We can't just not see what's inspiring all around us, right? Because that's what will help us grow. That's what will bring us closer to Krishna. And then maybe you can say, I'm going to take that inspiration. I'm going to leave the yuck, and I'm going to just try harder to, not be that yuck. Right? That's going to inspire me even more to not pick that up. I'll pick up the fragrance, and I'll leave the yuck. So this is important. Much healthier mindset than like I'm just going to leave it all because that whole thing is yuck. Because people have two sides. It's Kali Yuga, right? People have two sides. So this is the importance of association. We inspire each other. You see somebody going through something tough, and you see them carrying on, and you think, okay, if they're going through that, so can I. And this shared effort just builds momentum. It builds taste, it builds joy. So the point here is when we choose to prioritize our shared spiritual purpose over our smaller differences, our devotional life becomes safer and stronger and far more satisfying. We stop fighting alone, and that really changes everything. And this has been such an important prayer of mine. I think my boss was asking me questions on my birthday, like, what's your prayer every day? And I told him, my prayer every day is these devotees relationships. Because devotee relationships are like our ride or die. It's like if we don't have strong devotee relationships, we're not going to advance. We're just not. We may to some degree by ourselves, but to the degree that we can advance with others, it's like it's not even comparable. And if we start getting tripped up on these little things that other people do that drive us nuts, we're gonna miss that that nectar because it's just gonna be closed. So this is so important. And let this be, our all of our daily prayers. Is to maintain strong devotee relationships. Never let yourself have a falling out with a devotee. There may be a time where you say, okay, maybe I need to take a little bit of space, but just to carry any yuck around in your heart about another devotee, don't let yourself fall into that trap. And we can say, I'm not really up with how he's doing that, or I don't really support that, but don't carry around resentment. Okay? Choose to see the inspired side and then deal with the conditioned side in a functional way. That's what we have to do. What do you guys think?
Definitely, yeah, reminds me of something my mom used to tell me when I was a little kid. She would always say, "Don't carry hate in your heart."
Mm,
You know, um,
yeah.
I mean, like no one's perfect, right? That's what makes us human. Um, just things that you were talking about and about like association is important. Just being around like-minded people, um, in terms of like happiness, right? Like it starts with you. Like you got to be happy with yourself first.
Mm,
Like like sometimes when we talk about relationships and stuff like that, it's always like, okay, like if I find the perfect partner, they'll make me happy. Like
right.
no, it's like I find you have to be happy with yourself first, because then you can share that with your significant other, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're always searching for the thing that makes you happy, nine times out of 10, like you're just going to be searching forever, right?
Material energy, you 100% are going to be searching forever. There's no end to that. Hate to break it to
So,
you. There's no end to it.
but no, and it's like the same thing with, because no one is perfect. So yes, they're with our, significant others, with our friends, there's always going to be, one or two things where we're just kind of, that might be like irritating or annoying from time to time, but that's what makes us like beautifully human, is the fact that yes, we are not perfect, and it's just it's part of life, right?
Mm. Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you, Bhakta George. Really nice realization and so true. What do you think, Aaron?
I was just thinking, like, it's making me like question, like, what is a devotee and like who is a devotee, and like, I I feel like there's always times where like people are humble, like from a humble place, being like, well, I'm not a devotee, or like you know we come from a judgmental place and say like, well, they're not a devotee. Um, and I'm just wondering, like, or thinking about like maybe it's really about like the practice of like us seeing others as a devotee, or like even I don't know. I'm just like struggling a little bit with like when we label someone a devotee or not a devotee, or we accept that label or not. um and really that ultimately going back to like what we've discussed previously of like, well, we really don't know any individual's like internal relationship with God. And so just trying to like think about that and sit with that. And um yeah, I don't know, I feel like the word and the label can sometimes, we can really get caught up in it,
Mm.
and miss, and kind of like miss the whole meaning of um like what we're looking, like what type of association we're looking for, or like, yeah, how that could benefit our own spiritual progress when we like get into those like overly analyze into those details.
Yeah. Yeah, and we have a tendency, we kind of like to do that, right? It kind of like this it kind of like borders on judgment. We're like judging people, putting them into boxes. Oh, this person is doing this, so they must not really be legit, or we kind of but yeah, just like you said, at the end of the day, it's we really have no idea who we're dealing with. And just like the Gita tells us, somebody could make a terrible, horrendous mistake, but really be quite a devotee at heart, but their conditioning is just like really thick. And it's only a matter of time before that conditioning is just going to be completely cleared away, and they're just going to grow into the most inspiring devotee. I mean, there's so many examples in the Bhagavatam and in scriptures of devotees like this, that are leading really degraded lives. Maybe they were like brahmanas. They were really serious, they were born in brahmana families, but then they made some terrible mistakes. But then they end up coming back and being some of the most inspiring leaders in the lineage. They're just like, and this can happen. This can happen because our conditioning can just get really thick. It can just get really thick. But if a person is sincerely practicing spiritual life, it's only a matter of time before that conditioning is removed, and their light is just shining everywhere. So we can't get too caught up in it in the meantime. We don't really know what's happening. We can't get too caught up in it. Better to just take inspiration where where we can. What's that saying that devotees are like, I just read this: salt. Somebody help me out here. Salt, swan, and what's the other one? Do you guys know what I'm talking about here? Where Stella or Kanchandri, do you know what analogy I'm going with here?
Not too familiar
No?
with it. I mean, I've heard
Okay,
some of those descriptions of a devotee, but I mean, and it's in the
okay.
Bible too, the salt of the earth.
Yeah. Okay, you share what you were going to share. I'll look this up.
Um, I was just gonna say, that this verse actually is one way of just when you're talking and conversing about Krishna and everybody around you is feeling great satisfaction and bliss, then to me we're all devotees in that moment. you know
Hmm.
um and it's giving that kind of when I mean the conditioned side is there, but you see someone serving you see you feel bliss in their association while you're talking about Krishna. We
Hmm.
all know some of these, some of the gurus and stuff, and they start talking about Krishna and you're just in bliss.
Hmm.
So I think when you're hanging out with somebody and you're both like turning up the bliss to get higher and higher, that's usually a good indication that that's a good person to hang out with.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that definition. Thank you, Stella. Thank you, Stella. Yeah. And that's exactly what it is. If their conditioned side is becoming too distracting, like you're trying to see past their conditioned side, but it's just becoming too distracting for you, then you may need to take inspiration somewhere else, but don't write that person off or have, bad feelings in your heart. It's just we're all conditioned, we're all getting tripped up, and we're just trying to take inspiration where we can. I really like that though. Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody else have anything to share?
Well, you just made me think how I don't like traveling without Stella. But
Ah,
if I had to travel through this material existence without Krishna, I'd be miserable. So thanks for that.
ah, yeah, beautiful.
Hi, Bo.
Thanks. Yes.
Just was thinking, it was really stood out to me, highlighting again how beneficial and how much we need association in our friendships with each
Mm,
other. Yeah, you guys are so important. Um, yeah, and helpful. And then also how um, not to when something's wrong or one thing can take over and make us want to distance or separate, but like remembering there's so much to everyone. And like Stella was talking about in the last class, everybody's there with Krishna in their heart. They may just be stuck in that deep well and aren't turning towards it. And everyone has good qualities as well, so these holistic ways of thinking about it and trying to focus on these like deeper truths about people, I think is super helpful.
yes. Yeah. Yeah. So nice. Thank you. Thank you, Katie. You have to learn to take the essence, right? We don't feed on the negative or the superficial. No, we look for what nourishes the soul, just like what Stella said. And we extract that and we leave the rest. And we understand that even to the degree that we're getting offended by the rest is our own conditioning. Because there's no need to get offended by the rest if our goal in life is Krishna, then why are we offended? Right? But sometimes even when we're offended, it reveals our own conditioning, our own attachments, our own, you could say, oh, I'm getting triggered, and that can be opportunities to grow even. We can even become inspired in the opportunity from that if we can, to the degree that we can really get sincere about our connection with Krishna. We can see the things that keep us from that. So nice. Thank you. Anybody else before we go here? Or if we are fearful, we are safe in Krishna, Stella says. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Well, if we don't have any more shares, we can end for the day here. I hope you all are inspired to seek this devotee association and to keep the main thing the main thing. It's really a big takeaway from today's. Keep the main thing the main thing. Yeah. Thank you all. And I'll see you on Thursday.